And the first order of business here, as with all our meetings, is a pledge of allegiance. You know what? I will lead this time. So please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So I should have actually started with a roll call, so please, I'll back up. Call your name out and indicate if you're present. Jeff?
Jeff Dunn here.
Roger?
Roger here.
Edmond here. Is there anyone else is Jeff Madden, are you here?
Not yet.
Well, he may join us yet, but once again, he's not really here to participate, and we'll call on community members and anyone else when we get to public comment. Okay? So motion to approve minutes, please.
Our meeting as presented.
Jeff Madden, Jeff Dunn.
Jeff Dunn will second that motion.
And you were present for sure.
Yes, I was.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Edmond, aye.
Roger, aye.
Jeff, aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Minutes approved. As often, no old business to deal with. But before we go on, let me just ask, I need a motion to add to our agenda the following: to designate the Board of Finance to approve the 2020-2021 budget and set the mill rate in accordance with the Governor's Executive Order 7I, Section 13. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Roger, so moved.
Jeff, second.
Indicate roll call. Edmond, aye.
Roger, aye.
Jeff, aye.
Thank you. That's added to the agenda. We will simply discuss the other matter briefly as we go along under new business. And that matter would be a discussion of the opening of the parks. We don't necessarily need a motion, not the parks, excuse me, Nystrom's and the beach area, et cetera. Briefly until we get our next meeting when we can have Marty Egan present to present and discuss with us. And Jeff, certainly I would like to have you there as well for any kind of concerns you might have at that point in time. That's not going to be at this meeting. That'll be at our next meeting. Marty Egan could not make it. Someone got injured. He had to go address it. Was that
what I wanted to ask is, you know, it's really our first discussion of things when we got that email from you yesterday.
Right.
So what I'd like to know from Marty when he's coming, so it's in his preparation to come, what is the state recommending? What are neighboring towns doing in similar situations? And also, he has some recommendations for us to consider.
And that's exactly good questions to be asking. And I'll kind of make him aware of those questions. I would just say,
I wouldn't mind knowing that in advance as well, just so that we can think about that a little bit. And now with the COVID recovery committee, you know, actually having that information for that as well.
Sure. In fact, what I would suggest you do regarding the COVID committee is shoot an email directly to him in regard to that. If you need his email address, Jeff, I'll get it off to you. You have it?
Yep.
Okay. You know, and just ask him so that you can have that discussion amongst the COVID recovery committee prior to it coming to us. Now, let me just say, my understanding is that the state parks are now open. People are going to Black Rock. I think what they're doing is they're limiting people that are going in at any point in time so that it doesn't become a mob scene, so to speak, and people can't socially distance. But again, what other towns are doing, I do not know. Perhaps Marty does. And if not, he can certainly query other recreation directors in other communities for that kind of, information. As with all our, let me just say this to continue before we really get down to some of the other business. Our parks have never been closed. I've not closed them. The only thing we have closed are some of the facilities like basketball courts and playgrounds. And we did that for the obvious reason, because we didn't want people, well, basketball is a contact sport. How do you social distance? You can't. And the playgrounds, again, kids tend to, kids are kids. They're gonna group. So for those reasons, we closed both of those facilities. But that has been it. The parks are otherwise been open for people to use with the, again, with the caveat that they practice good, good hygiene. In other words, good social distancing, that kind of thing. And my observation, unless Jeff Madden would tell me otherwise, is that by and large, we've had little or no problems in that regard. And in fact, most people are abiding by those kinds of safety rules. Would you say otherwise, Jeff Madden?
They are for the most part. So the true test will be once the warm weather stays.
I agree.
We'll see what happens. Right now, we get a cold day and we get a warm day. We still monitor the people up at Nystrom's. We haven't, obviously, since we closed Reeves down, we haven't had any issues there, but we'll continue to monitor that and see what happens. However, I had a couple technical difficulties, so I missed the first part of this. What did you want me present for?
Oh, no, just when we do sit down with Marty Egan, which will be at our next Board of Selectmen meeting, because he was unable to attend tonight because of an emergency, basically. I would like you present so that as we begin to talk about these things, we have your input from a public safety perspective as well. And if you have some of those concerns, into Jeff Dunn's earlier comment, send them off to him as well, because Jeff, as you will soon find out, Jeff has agreed to and has been appointed already the chair of our long-term COVID recovery, local COVID recovery chairman.
Yes,
he
I'm
has
aware.
a group of people, right, that we are going to, right, you're on it. So no need for you to say anything more on that. He's already going to get your input. So nothing more to be said on that.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. So before we go on to, let's go on with that which is on our agenda, and that is the appointment under new business of the Long-Term Recovery Committee. Jeff Dunn has provided the following names and positions as them being stakeholders. I'll read them off, and I would ask for a motion and a second to appoint all them, and then of course we vote on it. We have Francine Koss, who is going to be represent education. Jeff Dunn, who's going to represent Landmark, obviously, all nonprofits, EDC, and the town in general. Kathy DuPont, who town clerk, but also the Realtor. So she's going to be representing that aspect. George LaCapra, who's going to be representing manufacturing, commercial real estate. Jane Lamphere, who will be representing Black Rock Tavern, obviously, but all restaurants and retail in general. Steve Lewis, Savings Bank and Residential Finance. Jeff Madden, as a first responder and emergency planner. Tina Molokani, who will be talking about social services and more specifically probably the food pantry. And Matt Stankiewicz, who's a building tradesman, MGM, but also trades and real estate. I would request a motion. Stacy, did you want to chime in here?
Yeah, if Jeff was amenable, I am interested in participating insofar as zoning, building, permitting, any land use processes that might have to participate in this.
I absolutely would. Yes, I would love to have you on.
All right,
Thank
so then we will add Stacy Seafick, who is also our land use administrator in general.
Since I presented this list, I'll make the motion to
appoint.
point all the listed people that you listed, Ed, including Stacy.
Jeff, excuse me, Roger,
Roger seconds.
thank you. Voting, Ed Mon, aye.
Roger, I.
Jeff, aye.
Thank you very much. Motion passes and unanimously. Next matter of business now would be the agenda item that I had previously mentioned, and that is I would entertain a motion to, and I'll read it one more time, to designate the Board of Finance to approve the 2021 budget and set mill rate in accordance with the Governor's Executive Order 7I-Section 13. Do I have a motion?
Roger seconds that.
All right,
Sorry.
Jeff McDonough, did you make the motion?
Yes, I did.
And Roger seconded. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Before we proceed with any vote, is there any discussion on this matter whatsoever? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the vote. Ed Mon, aye.
Roger, I.
Jeff, aye.
Thank you very much. Motion passes unanimously, giving the Board of Finance the ability to set our mill rate and budget for the coming fiscal year beginning July 1. I have several tax refunds. As soon as I find them, guys, I will read them off and ask for a motion to approve, and I will sign them on all of our behalfs. As recommended by the tax collector, Town of Thomaston, a refund to VW Credit Leasing Ltd. in the sum of $713.43.
I'll second
Now, I'm
that.
gonna do them all at once,
Oh,
and then
okay.
we'll do them all, okay?
Sure, go ahead.
To Linda Williams of Terry Holt Street. She obviously owns property here, but she lives in Terryville for $6.33. And for Christine Michaud, $16.30. I'd entertain a motion to approve all three of those refunds.
So moved.
So
I got a
second.
motion, and who would like it to be the second?
I'll second that.
That's fine. I got a motion by Roger and a second by Jeff. Call the vote. All in favor, Ed Mon, aye.
Roger, I.
Jeff, aye.
Thank you very much. Motion to approve, unanimous. That brings us to communications, of which I have none further at this point in time. And I do it, and now also public comment. Eileen, you qualify as public comment. Kurt, you qualify as public comment. And there is a phone number here. I guess that's you, Roger, isn't it? No, it is. Yes, it is. So
Yeah.
Eileen Moan or Kurt Moffett, do you have any public comment?
I do not.
I don't have public comment. I just have a couple of questions.
Kurt, feel free. What is it? Questions relative to this that we can simply talk about after this meeting? Are you
Yeah,
looking for
either way is
clarification?
fine. Either way is fine.
Hey, Ed, I was wondering if we could go back to new business for a second, because I did just want to have some conversation about the current COVID situation that we're in a couple of questions.
Certainly. I'll open that. And Kurt, what I'll do is after we get done here, I've either got your email or your phone, and I will just give you a shout so I can clarify, okay? That's what you're seeking, correct?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, very good. As long as you're comfortable with that, and that's really what you want me. Jeff, please, your concerns?
Yeah, so a couple of things, just going back to this discussion of behind BRT, if I were successful in getting the to close off that driveway and have all the traffic go behind Reeves Field. Is it possible to ask Glenn to go down and maybe do a little bit of filling in of potholes and various things so that it's a slightly smoother ride going through there?
Yeah, as long as, he can
Yeah.
certainly do that on any of our public property that we belong, that it's ours. Certainly he can go fill potholes on those items without any question. I guess if we start going on to private property, it does become a question, should we
Yeah, I
be
think this is
expending
all
any
public.
town resources, you know?
I think it's all public that might have the issues, but that question was just asked me. And the other thing, I'm just curious as to know where the town stands as far as reopening. I know there's a lot of question marks there, but as far as what the state's saying to us, what our thoughts are as far as town hall, and obviously you've already talked about parks, but any
Mhm.
other departments as well. Library.
So the library, I guess it would be in large part up to the library board themselves, Jeff, there. While I know at one point in time they wanted to close down in entirety, and I had serious conversation with Deb about keeping, Deborah Radosevich, that is, about keeping that open to some extent. And she agreed to do so by putting books out and that kind of thing, and at least keeping something going in that regard. And that was much appreciated. Again, we've not closed parks. There was no need to do so. Or I personally felt when the question came to me, would I close them? Do people want exercise, and should we be closing our public facilities? As long as they're exhibiting good behavior, we have no problem with that whatsoever. So going forward, again, that'll be a further discussion regarding Reeves, or not so much Reeves, but Nystrom's, because that is really the most popular area here. And we'll have that at a further, as we go on with this and we get more input. In terms of town hall, I'm not solid on it yet. However, let me say this, I have my inclinations. My inclinations would be we would take this in steps, okay? But the steps we would take would be dependent upon us having all the protective equipment and devices we need here, i.e. Protective shields to put on people's countertops and so on, additional hand sanitizers, cleaning wipes, so on and so forth. Once we have all those things in place, which we don't yet, okay, then we will begin to look at an opening date and the kinds of behavior that'll be considered here. My initial thought is, and unless I hear something otherwise from others, would be as while we would unlock our doors, we would still continue to encourage remote as much as possible, wherever possible, and appointment only initially to see how it goes. I don't want to open the doors and have people just start streaming in. But if they're doing it by appointment only, we can certainly then limit the amount of people in, yet let people into town halls. Again, they would have to maintain social distancing, 6-foot limits, wear a mask, as would our employees be required to wear a mask when they address them as well. When they're sitting in their offices by themselves, that's their prerogative. Our offices fortunately have enough social spacing in them, so nobody is on top of one another. But when you're addressing the public, if we expect them to be courteous to us, we certainly need to be courteous and exhibit the same behavior to them. Those are just some of my basic thoughts.
Okay. I mean, the main reason I'm asking is because, we did have the initial meeting of the COVID team, just for everybody to introduce themselves and talk about their areas. And, me representing the town, I don't necessarily know all of the ins and outs. So I probably will either need you to fill me in on that or provide some information.
Once Jeff, once I craft the actual list, and I've got a few different sources that I'm looking at as to what our policy will be. Okay, I'll be happy to forward that to you, and you can comment.
And you were talking about getting thermometers.
Correct.
Is
They're on
that
order.
for town hall or just for general use and whatever kind of public thing that we might be doing? Like we're doing meetings and stuff. Are we going to be checking temperatures when people are coming in?
If we get to that point, Jeff, there will be one for town hall for that purpose more than anything else.
Yeah.
And I guess if someone comes in the door and wants to meet and they're showing some sort of dysfunction, we will have that thermometer available to check them. And if they got a temperature, we'll tell them to leave immediately, obviously. But that will be available to town hall as well as Jeff. Fire will also have one, and ambulance that we're ordering. So we're gonna have four of them, four more on order for us that we are able to get from the state of Connecticut or whomever is providing it for us. We don't have those yet.
All right. And so
Hey, Ed,
my
Ed,
final,
I got-
go ahead.
I would suggest we have a supply of masks on hand in case somebody comes in at town hall and doesn't have a mask or they forgot their mask. We at least can supply with them, give them one anyways, so they can stay.
Well, honestly, Roger, my thought on that is our policy would be more don't enter without a mask. And if you do, we're gonna send you out to get one, because if we start providing things for people, then they're gonna just come and expect us to do that all the time. I want people to take that personal responsibility. If they
I don't mean
don't
all the
have one
time.
anywhere, well, then we'll do our best to provide something.
But, right, I mean, I don't mean just carte blanche, here, take a mask. But somebody gets coming in and they've probably never been in town hall for ages, now they're in there and they don't have a mask. At least we can provide them with one anyway.
Again, there'll be notices on the door and everywhere else, because when we go public on this, to let everybody know what the rules and regs are. We need to have people accept some personal responsibility here. We can't
But
be
again-
their babysitters.
Again, it could be a situation where it's probably best to give them a mask.
If in some extreme situations, we'll do so. Extreme.
Oh, thank you.
And then my one final question, if we wait 2 weeks to talk to Marty, does that impede at all the possibilities of opening in a timely manner? Are people anxious to get to the beaches and stuff when it gets warmer and they're allowed to go?
Marty certainly has to put some things in place, and if you saw from his list, one of his concerns is, can he get lifeguards? Can he get beach attendants? That kind of thing. And I would indicate to him that he starts to query that from the various different kids that he has used in the past. I know he indicated maybe in his email to us, or maybe in conversation to me, I don't recall specifically, as to whether or not his thought about, are parents going to be comfortable with allowing their children to do these things? Some of the questions were must the kids wear masks all the time, or just when they're talking to people? Some of those things I think we can easily weigh in on. I can't weigh in on whether kids are going to be willing to come to work as lifeguards or as beach attendants. So, that's certainly something that he needs to get started on. And I would encourage him to make those calls in advance to see if he can get staff this year. If he can't, then we'll have to address that question. We can't get anybody. How do we go about this? Do we go about this? But I don't have that.
Roger wants to make a comment. Like Jeff saying, if we wait till the next selectmen's meeting and maybe not give him enough time to go forward, I would suggest having a special meeting prior to that and have him attend, and we could just talk about it that much sooner than later.
Well, that's why I wanted to do it now, so we don't have to have another Zoom meeting in the middle of all of this. I think if we encourage him to do what he needs to do on his end, then he can give us more feedback when we actually sit down. I think really what he's looking from us for more than anything else is some go-aheads. Some of his questions were, for instance, if I can't get anybody, do we open the beach? If I can't get anybody to be a lifeguard, do we open the beach? Those are things we could ponder already. Whether he can't get somebody or not, are we willing to move ahead without lifeguards? Those are things we could think about prior to Marty meeting with us. If he has everything ready to go and we tell him he can pull the trigger on June 2, he has ample time. So that's my
Well,
thought.
I would still ask him if June 2 is going to be too tight for him, time-wise.
I will cover that when I talk to him tomorrow, Roger.
Perfect.
Okay, thank
Jeff.
you.
Thank you. Is there anything further here? Is there any public comment after all that additional discussion? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So
Roger.
second.
Second, Jeff?
Yep.
Call a roll, Ed Monin, aye.
Roger, I.
Yes, aye.
Thank you very much. Jeff Dunn, talk to me tomorrow after you talk to Marty
I
a
will.
little bit, and we'll know how to proceed, okay?
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much, one and all.
See you guys.
Have a good evening.
See
Yeah,
ya.
good night.
Yes.